Kansas loses by a lot. They did not score very much at the Big 12 tournament. They lose against Houston 69-47, and I guess we're going to talk about it. I don't know. This is the paid podcast, a live edition of the show here, post-game from the Big 12 tournament. I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. Of course, we're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible. We're here, boots on the ground at the T-Mobile Center. We actually met somebody earlier tonight that shook our hands and said that he enjoys the show, so appreciate you. Shout out to you, that person. We're here. Unfortunately, we're here. I wish I wasn't here. Wish it was in literally anywhere else. Kansas loses big against Houston 69-47 in the Big 12 tournament semifinal. We'll talk about all that coming up. Of course, if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment, share your thoughts. You can also like the video. Obviously, this one might be a little bit of more of a tougher show for us because of the way that tonight unfolded. We'll talk about that, obviously, but we so appreciate everybody's support. We're over 600 subscribers, close to 1,700, so please go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we will be live for the remainder of the season for KU, which could be coming to a close in the NCAA tournament. We might talk about that later on towards the end of the show, but as for tonight, Kevin, this was about as bad as it gets for Kansas against Houston. They just could not do anything. It took them almost 11 minutes to make a shot in the second half. It was just bad all around.
Yeah, even the first made shot in the second half was a dunk that Flory basically missed that wound up rolling in. And so the thing about it is, Nick, you can look at it and say, oh, it's not your night. Houston's making shots. Cenac, winds up tying, I think, his season high in three-pointers was going off. You're getting beat to all the loose balls. But one of the things that I wanted to mention that we talked about right before we came on is this is a team that has had this happen a lot. Like, this is a team that it has not been their night more than any Bill Self team that we've seen. And that's not that's something that I can put numbers to. From 2003, 2004, Bill Self's first season at KU through 2016-17, KU never had more than 4 double-digit losses in a single season. And they only had 4 double-digit losses in one season, and that was his very first year. So only that one time. Every other time was 3 or fewer. From 2017-18 through this season, Kansas has had 5 or more double-digit losses 7 times. The only time that KU lost fewer than 5 double-digit games were 2020, obviously a terrific team, and the national title team in 2022. This year's team, Nick, has 8 double-digit losses, and that's the most that Bill Self has ever had at Kansas. And we've talked before about this is a team that has to have intensity. They have to come out and defend. They have to have the energy level. They can't get beat on 50-50 balls. And that's the thing that you notice the most with this team is when they have it, they can play with anybody. The flip side of that is when they don't have it, not only can they lose to anybody, but they can get absolutely run by a good basketball team. It's happened a lot this year, and it happened again tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I think it's funny when you bring up the stats. I think at certain times in a season, there can be some value to getting your doors blown off, sure. Right? It's sort of like hey, this is what we need to work on. Right. Yeah, this is what we need to work on. This is what we need to do. But obviously, when it's happening like that many times, you're right. It becomes a feature, not a bug, right? Yeah. It's not hey, we had an off night. It's, hey, we've had, 8 off nights or whatever it may be. And tonight was the worst out of any of them of this season. I mean, tonight was the worst one, right? I mean, it was honestly pretty unbelievable to watch at times what Kansas was doing offensively. They were just completely unable to generate anything. Darren Peterson completely saved Kansas in the first half from this being like a 40-point game, truthfully. I mean, he was doing it all. I thought his defensive intensity was as high as I've ever seen it, which was great to see. He had a nice steal and a dunk in the first half. And he was really trying to do it all, and he was not getting any help from anybody else. There was lack of ball movement, some poor spacing at times, really bad shot quality for most of the night. And on top of all that, my big thing that I've kind of talked about on this show over the course of the season is Floyd Badunga was completely uninvolved in the offense. Yeah. He wasn't even able to really get a chance to get the ball. And then when the few times that he did get the ball in the first half, he was timid with it. He passed away from an opportunity where he could have maybe gone to the rim and tried to create something. And against a defense like Houston, you have to take those opportunities when you get them, right? Like you have to take advantage of that if you're given the ball in those situations. So, he ends up going through the entire first half without shooting a shot and just was never engaged in the game. And you're talking about a guy that's one of the best, rib running lob guys that Kansas has had in the past 5-6 years, really, basically since Doak probably.
Yeah.
And guess what? You don't even get a chance to get him activated or involved in the game at all. So that was obviously a huge bummer. And then again, Trey White and Melvin Council both continued to struggle as well. Like it was just bad all around. And I think Phillips comment here said, look disinterested. Yeah, I think this was a game where Kansas let Houston dictate to them everything that Houston wanted to do. And then as the game progressed, it seemed like Kansas just kind of rolled over and died. And that's not something you ever really hope to see or expect to see from a team like Kansas. And it's happened, unfortunately, more often over the past couple of years than we've ever used to be seeing it. But Flory did what he could. I think overall rebound. I think he ended up with double-digit rebounds tonight. He was pretty close to it, I think.
He had 7 in the first half, so I didn't see what he wound up with.
He finished with 12 rebounds, 5 points, 12 rebounds. But again, just no way to be able to activate him at all. Mike in the chat says, "Are you guys being held captive at an isolated location? Scratch your nose if you need help." No, Mike, we're just in an empty booth here, high above T-Mobile Center. I don't want to jolt you guys by trying to turn the camera around to show the view that we're in.
The court is down below us, basically.
Yeah, so we're up high, we're elevated above the court, so we're not being held captive. I guess it does kind of look that way when you think about it. No, we're just in one of the empty press boxes. CD says, did you boys watch the first game? Yes, we did.
It was an unbelievable game.
Yes, it was.
Looked like a different sport.
Right. I literally made that comment to Kevin when we were watching the KU Houston game. It was like, if you showed these two games independently to somebody who did not know what basketball was, they would be like, are these teams playing the same sport? Like, are they trying to do the same thing? Like it was absolutely crazy that first game. Both teams went on a run down the stretch where neither one of them could miss a shot, and Kansas could have used a little bit of that in their game, and it wouldn't have even mattered still. But
unbelievable shot making, back and forth.
Yeah, and of course Iowa State fans are fantastic. They did a great job. I was honestly pretty impressed with the Arizona contingent. There was some more Arizona fans here than I expected, but the Iowa State fans obviously made the atmosphere pretty great. And then we get this crappy game that happened in the second game where it wasn't even like, oh, this was a fun, tough defensive battle. Like, no, this was just Houston being bad and Kansas being non-existent.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, to the point that Philip's making about if the guards could play make and create against Houston, it's really tough to do that with your specific ball handling guard. And that's where you got to move the ball. And what I mean by that is specifically tonight, they're blitzing ball screens, and then they were having somebody tag the roller, basically. So what you needed to do was get the ball to the wing really quickly, and then either the wing is going to have an open shot, and KU did have a couple open looks from out there on the wing, or you're going to be able to have a better angle to enter into the roll guy. KU didn't do that nearly enough in the first half. You do think about Elmarco Jackson got in the lane, kind of pitched it out for an open three from Trey White that didn't go down, that felt like a big shot at the time. In the second half, just everything went wrong. Everything compounded. And obviously, the way things ended in the first half didn't help, where you felt like, okay, we played really badly, but we're right in the game. And then you have the foul at half court. Bill Self basically says, hey,
foul.
Yeah, Bill Self basically told Elmarco Jackson to foul Kingston Flemings, to take a foul because KU didn't have many fouls. Flemings heard that, went up to get the contact. It was not the best call. And then on the other end, there was a little bit of a flop with Elmarco driving, and so you don't end the half the way that you wanted. But still, it's an 8-point game at that point. You're still in it, even with a lot of mistakes, even with not playing well, even with Bill Self making some mistakes. When you think about when he subbed out Flory and Darren Peterson right before the 8-minute timeout, and it kept going. There was no break in play. And so what was a 6-point game at that point went to 12 points before the next TV timeout. I'm not saying that Self should have called a timeout at that point to stop it, but you should have had somebody maybe give a foul or something to stop the clock to get Darren Peterson and Flory back in at that point. But even with all of that, you're within 8. You head back out on the court and you give up a layup, and then you give up an immediate 3. And then all of a sudden you're giving up second chance points. You're doing some of the things that you managed to maybe even avoid in the first half, and everything just sort of snowballed from that point on.
Right, because only being down 8 at half, it feels good until you're down 13, 20 seconds into the second half. Then it didn't even matter. Like, it didn't even matter the only down 8 at halftime, because now you're down 13, 30 seconds into the second half.
Yeah.
So, as you highlighted, I thought one of the key sequences in the first half was what you mentioned with where Self tried to get Darren Peterson and Flory off the floor at the same time, and it ended up being this long run of sequence of uninterrupted play for almost 4 minutes, where you had a lineup out there with Jamari and Elmarco and Bryson Tiller, and it just didn't really work very well for them. They ended up giving up a 3 to make it a 12-point game at that point. And Bryson Tiller had another really rough game. And I actually tweeted about this, and something, you and I've talked about too, is that with kind of how this season has unfolded and the way this roster is constructed, if one of Flory or Bryson are having a really bad game, that causes a lot of issues for Kansas, because Paul Mbia has not had the ability to get out on the floor enough to feel like he's a very reliable additional big man. And so that really, really limits Kansas's options, especially from a lineup standpoint, when one of or both of those guys is really struggling. And now Bryson Tiller, I mean, you talk about just in totality of this Big 12 tournament, Kevin. Yeah. Bryson Tiller and Melvin Council were really rough in this Big 12 tournament, and Trey White too, shooting wise as well. Everybody was really.
And Tiller had a 13-8 yesterday, but really struggled against the physicality of TCU's front court. And there were some things there beyond the stats that you're mentioning with the struggling. Melvin Council had a really rough tournament, and Kansas is not really built, I don't think, to win games when you have multiple starters struggling that way. Trey White was a little bit kind of up and down as well, made a few shots, missed a few big shots tonight. But this is a team that's not deep, right? That's one of their biggest flaws. And so it's okay if you're not deep. Teams can win in March if you're not deep. The 2012 team had no depth that went to the national title game. But you have to have your starters play well. Right. And if your starters aren't playing well, and then you don't have somebody that can come off the bench and fix things for you, that's where you start to have issues. And I thought in the second half of this game, Nick, you and I were talking about it while we were sitting there. Self was kind of throwing things against the wall, right? Yeah. Like you bring in Cole Rosario, Jaden Dawson, Paul Mbia gets minutes. And I'm not saying that was, the worst thing in the world, but I think it says something that here we are. Kansas's next game is going to be an elimination game in the NCAA tournament, and Self is trying to find, hey, do we have a bench piece that I can trust? That's not what you want to see heading into March Madness, basically.
Yeah, 100% agree, right? And Bill Self talked about it, as it pertains to the Darren Peterson situation with him struggling, that he still didn't know what the identity of this team was. And that really for the first time in his 20-plus years of coaching at Kansas, this late into the season and now literally to the postseason, it still feels like that continues to be the case, that you don't really sort of fully know what this team is. Rocco Hawk in the comment test, the $1 million question, what would you do to fix the offense? Everyone feels lost without Peterson or Flory right now. Yeah, it's tough, right? Because I think what we learned tonight is that you certainly have to have one of DP or Flory on the floor at all times.
Yeah,
like
sure.
You cannot, especially in an elimination game that you just mentioned, which is going to be the NCAA tournament, you can't have both those guys on the bench for any amount of time. I think that is pretty clear. We definitely 100% confirmed that tonight, I think. But beyond that, it really just, I think, comes down to continuing to try to find that balance of, making sure that Trey White and Melvin Council are being aggressive with Darren Peterson. I think also, for me at least tonight, we also saw you have to get Flory, activated early in the game. Yeah. You have to get him engaged early in the game offensively to make him an offensive threat. So to me, that means, hey, drop one of those, famous elevator screen, something plays to get him a lob, right? Something to get him going early in the game, engaged early in the game. We had a comment earlier, and I agree with it from Dale earlier on. Let me see if I can scroll up here real quick. Yeah, this was Dale's comment. I love Flory defensively. However, Flory has issues against bigger centers. Flory's only a lob threat, not effective with back to the basket. 100% agree with that. And so what that tells me is, okay, then you need to make sure you're getting him engaged in other ways, i.e., by utilizing him as a lob threat or getting him to the basket where he has an opportunity to just go up and get right at the rim. And so if you're not doing that early in the game, like we saw tonight against Houston, Flory just kind of becomes completely disengaged. Yeah. And you're talking about the guy that is arguably your second best scoring threat, right? On a night-to-night basis. You have to get him going early in a game. You need to get him the ball early in a game and get him going and make your opponent understand that he is going to be a threat consistently over the course of the game to run at the rim. And when you don't do that, look what happened tonight. Tonight is he doesn't shoot a shot in the first half and is completely a non-factor for offensively for Kansas. And then when you couple that with the fact that Melvin Council and Trey White are struggling, and it's only basically Darren Peterson, that's how you end up with a game where you score 47 points.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're running pick and roll as much as they are, especially when the ball's in Darren Peterson's hands, think about the way that NBA teams run it. Basically, if there's two guys, you're probably going to get a shot either with the ball handler or the roll guy. Well, when they're sending that third guy where they're blitzing the ball screen and then they're attacking the roller, that's when the ball needs to get moving and you need to find other guys and they need to knock down shots so that they can't keep blitzing the ball screen. And then Darren Peterson starts going off. And then when, you attach to him, that's when you start getting the roll stuff. And so all of that has to work in concert, and you have to move the ball. You have to make open shots when you get them. The tough thing about Houston is you don't get very many of them, and KU got fewer than a lot of teams because, quite frankly, a lot of people talk about toughness, Nick, and you think about physical stuff. I talk a lot about mental toughness on this show, and mental toughness a lot of times is just discipline, right? And the discipline to keep generating good shots and good shots and good shots. Think about Arizona tonight. They weren't perfect against Iowa State, and Arizona's got great defense, and their defense wasn't great tonight. But when they got down, they kept getting shot after shot after shot at the rim, and that was even with Braden Burris having a bad game. And so when you look at how all of those things work, Kansas was not generating great shots, right? You were winding up with long mid-range jumpers that with a hand in your face. You were winding up with, Flory getting the ball 10 feet from the basket as opposed to getting it in a more dangerous position. And so all of those things have to work together to get good shots, and they need to generate good shots and have the mental toughness to basically say, okay, the shot isn't here right now. We're not going to take a fadeaway. There's still 15 seconds on the shot clock. Let's generate a better look than what we're getting.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some chatter in the comments too about, the bench and those guys. Obviously, Cole Rosario comes in tonight and ends up, getting some shots and gets going a little bit, which was nice to see. But maybe that to me speaks to a bigger, if you want to look at it from a bigger criticism of Bill Self and say, hey, maybe before March, you try to give those guys a chance off the bench to create something. It's kind of too late for that now. But on the flip side of that, you could also argue, okay, if you're trying to get those guys going, earlier in conference play, do you lose more conference games early on in conference play? So there's obviously a balance there. But, we kind of joke about it. There is a very real Bill Self circle of trust element to this that we joke about on the show, but it is a real thing. Like he's going to trust the guys that he's going to trust. And if you're not in that circle, it becomes very difficult to penetrate that and get your opportunities, a la guys like Jaden Dawson this year, even, kind of Cole Rosario to a certain extent, right? I mean, Jamari McDowell is a great example of a guy that this season early on got into that circle of trust with Bill Self and does a lot of the things the right way. And again, it's not the most athletic guy, isn't necessarily going to be the most explosive athlete, but he plays the way Bill Self likes guys to play. And so he's able to get out there. And obviously it helped that Jamari also early in the season was shooting the ball legitimately very well. Yeah. And over the course of the year did shoot the ball well at Allen Fieldhouse, just not necessarily anywhere else. So, that may be what it is as well too. So that's just how it is. I think Bill Self definitely has that circle of trust. And I think that something you could criticize him for, that, hey, maybe you should have tried playing a little bit more guys on your bench earlier in the season to get them more engaged and involved, instead of now sitting here at the end of the season where it feels like you legitimately can only trust 5 guys basically, and it's your 5 starters.
Yeah. And I think specifically with Jaden Dawson, his injury in the fall didn't help, because I think if he had been healthy throughout, the opportunities that Cole Rosario got early on with Darren Peterson being out, those probably would have been Jaden Dawson's opportunities. And maybe he would have gotten a chance to work through some things and get to a point where he was really playing a lot in those situations. And then to your point, Jamari McDowell playing as well as he did early on, Bill Self probably looked over and said, I've got what I need in that guy. And Jamari, I think, he's hit a few big shots, not as many, away from home. But the other part is we've seen him struggle defensively against guards that have strength and can really get after him. And so you look back now and it's easy to say, oh, man, I wish Jaden Dawson was in the rotation and you had done that. But it's easy to kind of see how the injury put him behind the 8 ball where he wasn't able to get those early minutes that you were expecting. Jamari McDowell making the most out of those early minutes and putting himself into that spot where he just wasn't really ever able to pull himself out. And in some cases, it's a little bit different, but in some cases, it's a little like Sheck Diallo, right? Sheck came in and had the NCAA thing, so he couldn't practice. He didn't really, get to learn the system. And at some point, KU had to say, hey, we're actually in games that matter now. Let's put Landon Lucas in because we know what he's going to do. And so I think that's the issue when you look at Jaden Dawson in particular. But unfortunately, here you are now in March, and you don't have those answers. And I think the thing that we've talked about too is the Darren Peterson injury stuff. This is a team that, by all rights, is basically in January, right? In terms of learning how to play with Darren Peterson, learning how to play in tight games against elite opponents with Darren Peterson, because they haven't had that for a lot of the season. And so they aren't where you would want them to be at this point in the season.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes, Kevin, they say is it the devil you know or the devil you don't? Sometimes it's hard to say. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll sort of reset things. We'll talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament, which obviously that'll be next for Kansas. We're going to be doing a live show on Selection Sunday, by the way, so you can join us for that after the bracket comes out. So we'll talk about that, talk about some of our more thoughts from this game, the Big 12 tournament in general. We'll do all that coming up next.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible. And they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
This is the paid podcast, a live edition of the show. We're here. We're at T-Mobile Center, boots on the ground, unfortunately for the last time because KU lost 69-47 against Houston. It's late again on what I don't even know. What is today? Today Friday night. I don't even know I never know what day it is. We're late here on a Friday night, so huge thank you to everybody that's joining us live. If you're listening after the fact on audio, or if you're joining the YouTube show after the fact on audio as well, we so appreciate you also. If you're here live, be sure to do 3 things. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also share a comment. Really appreciate everybody hanging out and joining us tonight for this show. Kansas loses big, 69-47 against Houston in the Big 12 tournament semifinal. They're done. The final tomorrow is going to be Houston and Arizona. And so now we have to look forward to Selection Sunday for Kansas, and almost certainly a 4 seed at this point for KU in the NCAA tournament. We kind of talked about it. If you won tonight, maybe you had a chance to move up to a 3. There was some help for KU actually that happened earlier today, which was Alabama, who is also kind of right on that 3-4 line. They lost a terrible game to Ole Miss.
And AJ Storr.
Storr, yeah. Shout out AJ Storr. So that was helpful for KU, but then KU obviously ended up losing tonight, so I don't think it's really going to matter. they're almost certainly going to be a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, obviously a rough game tonight. And again, for what's felt like the past couple seasons now, Kansas feels like they're really limping into the NCAA tournament with not a lot of positive momentum, right? I mean, you lost 4 of your last 6 games before you beat K-State on senior day, and that K-State game really felt good. And then you come to the Big 12 tournament. Last night, you don't play great, but get a win against a good TCU team that was playing well. I'm going to be picking TCU to win a game in the NCAA tournament in my bracket if they're whatever seed they are, because I do think they'll probably do that. But then you come in here tonight and just get absolutely bulldozed, stuffed in the locker, destroyed. It was really tough tonight out there. So good question here from Nick in the chat says, would we have won on the LED floor? I was thinking about that.
That was a running joke,
right.
On press row.
We should blame tonight on the floor. Okay, we had prepared. KU had prepared for the LED floor. Then the Big 12 and Brett Yormark did a classic rug pull, switched it over to the hardwood. KU didn't know how to respond, and they end up losing. So by the way,
Cyclone Larry, who's one of the best Big 12 follows out there, Cyclone Larry was railing about how the Big 12 switched the floor to a floor that would give Arizona an advantage over Iowa State after that loss too. So
yeah. So maybe it was the floor. Maybe the floor was the issue. By the way, Brett Yormark, if you're listening to the show or watching the show, please, for the love of God, end the Big 12 rap. Oh, it's so bad. Every time I hear it, it's worse than the previous time that I heard it. So please, Brett, end it. Otherwise, I'm going to send you an email. So
Sermons was not officiating, by the way.
It was not Sermons.
Sermons was in the first game. But
this was Kip Kissinger's crew.
Kissinger was the one that drew Bill Self's ire at halftime. Michael Swain, friend of the program over at fog.net, does a great job. He put out that Self was really letting Kip Kissinger have it as they were walking off at halftime, and then Tony Padilla on that as well, which Tony Padilla is another guy that they've occasionally had issues with. But
Mick also asked in the chat, are they seriously considering moving the tourney, or is it just some sold sour grapes? As far as I'm aware, they're not going to move the tourney. I think they committed to like 2032, I think, or 2031. So it's going to remain in Kansas City for an extended period, because if you remember right, there was sort of that thought where Yormark was like trying to get it to go to New York, I think, at one point. And then everyone kind of freaked out. And then he came out and was like, hey, actually, we're 100% reaffirming that we're staying in Kansas. Because it was so funny, because I think it was before he was trying to think about moving it, before he'd even ever been here. Right. Yeah. And then I think he came here and he was like, oh, crap. Like, actually, this works really well. There's great fans that show up. Obviously, it's a pretty central location, the Big 12. Despite the fact that you've added in some schools from across the country, it's still a fairly central location for most of the schools in the conference. And so I think he figured out, hey, idiot, don't move the conference tournament. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I always feel like the people that want to move the Big 12 tournament just haven't been to the Big 12 tournament here. And so they don't see what it's like here, not just in the arena, because that's pretty cool, but the way that Kansas City just embraces the whole thing, what it's like in Power and Light. You were there a little bit earlier today. The way that the whole area kind of embraces this tournament is totally different. And I remember covering the Big 12 tournament in Dallas, and it was nothing like what it is here. And you move into a place like Vegas, and let's be clear, Vegas isn't Vegas anymore either. It's not the same place that it was before, but really it's just teams that don't want to travel as far, and so they want their fans to be there without thinking about, hey, this is the best setting for it. So
Mr. Smith in the chat says, who benefits from the tournament in Vegas? Arizona and Bliss. Yes, that's exactly the point.
Utah fans have talked about it too.
Yeah, I don't care about Utah fans.
Interestingly enough, BYU fans I don't think really have, but BYU fans are terrific. I love those.
Yeah, guys. It's so dumb. And by the way, on this topic, just tonight it was announced that the Big 12 had its highest attendance record of a session tonight. There were 19,500 fans here for the first game between Iowa State and Arizona. So it's at its most peak. It's at its peak popularity in Kansas City. So it's absolutely absurd to think about moving it at this point. I mean, just go watch other conference tournaments. No other conference tournaments have the same level of what this tournament I think has here. So make also in the chat just real quick, ask, call your shot, Arizona or Houston. I mean, I got to stay committed to my anti-Houston bit, so I'm going to go with Arizona, despite the fact that I'm very annoyed with Tommy Lloyd for his comments regarding the Big 12 tournament and how it should be played in Vegas, and how, I'm Tommy Lloyd, I didn't ask to be in the Big 12. We didn't ask for you to be here either, Tommy. Okay, we didn't ask for you to be here either, big dog. All right, so just shut up and go in the conference tomorrow against Houston, because I've been on this anti-Houston thing all season long. I don't think Houston is that good, but obviously tonight they were good. So.
Yeah, I think Arizona's a tough matchup for Houston too, because if you think about what has traditionally given Houston trouble, it's when Houston can't enforce itself on the glass, and when they're turning people over. And Arizona takes care of the ball, they get to the free throw line, they rebound just as well, if not better. They're bigger than Houston is, at least down low, and they can put they can basically put a moat around the rim with their post guys. And so I tend to think Arizona is a really tough matchup for Houston, just because they do a lot of the same things that Houston does, but they do them better.
Yeah. We got a comment here from Joseph that says, what are the chances that a non-1 seed makes the Final Four? Looking pretty similar to last year. I mean, I think you'd have to look at if it's like if UConn ends up as a 2, I guess they could make it versus Houston or whatever, because there's still a chance for one of those guys. But yeah, I don't know. It is funny how the NCAA tournament works, where sometimes the years where you think it's wide open, it's not. The years where you think it's not wide open, it is. So maybe this year, maybe it is actually. The
1 seeds do feel like they're pretty far ahead of everybody else, but like Nick said, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, 4 number 1 seeds again. But I do think that there does seem to be a pretty tangible gap between that. Now, you have a single elimination tournament, anything can happen, right? But
Mr. Monkey says in the comments, are any tournament games at Allen Fieldhouse? Unfortunately, no, which obviously is a bit of a problem for KU, as we've seen this season. Mick in the chat asks, ceiling for this KU team, how many games can they win in a row? Yeah, I mean, after tonight, I think certainly your confidence level takes a pretty big hit for KU. It'll depend on matchups, as it always does, like we talked about. KU's going to end up being a 4 seed. There were some comments earlier. We had actually talked about it. Northern Iowa is the team that I think you don't want to see if you're Kansas. If they're a 13 seed and you're a 4 seed, that would be a bad matchup for KU.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because there still have been moments where obviously you do see this KU team play to its ceiling, and it feels like they can pretty much beat anybody, right? So if they're able to find a way to get things going, could they get to the second weekend? Yes. But I think, to me at least, certainly now towards the end of the season, I've kind of solidified just mentally my process of just get to the Sweet 16. If you do that, no matter how you did it, if you do that, I think you'll feel okay about how things have gone this year, because this would be, if you don't make the second weekend, this would be another year in a row where you haven't done it since winning the national championship in 2022. National championship, and that year is getting further and further away. So just simply get to the second weekend, I think, and then at that point, I feel like you're playing with house money.
Can happen.
Right. You're playing with house money at that point if you get to the second weekend. But to me, that has pretty consistently been my thought, and now I think it's really solidified after what we saw transpire here at the Big 12 tournament. If KU gets matched up against Arkansas, I will be in a very deep, dark place. Please do not get matched up against Arkansas. That would be awful.
That seems like one of those committee things where they do it and then they claim like, "Oh, we didn't intentionally do that."
Bro. Please, man.
They always say that they don't seed for storylines, but then certain things happen so often that
there was a run for many of you guys probably are aware of this, but there was a run for like 3 years where KU and Arkansas played in like everything. They obviously played in the Liberty Bowl. KU women's basketball got knocked out by Arkansas, I think, in the NCAA tournament at one point. Obviously, the KU men's got knocked out by Arkansas twice when you go to 2023 when they lost.
Baseball?
I don't think they might. I think they did play in baseball too. Actually, I think they might have did play in baseball too. So I am sick and tired of Arkansas. Please do not. I don't want to play Arkansas. It's not even necessarily about, people are in the chat talking about the matchup. I'm not even talking about that. I don't even care about the matchup. I'm just simply talking about the team. I don't want to see Arkansas. I don't want to hear this stupid calling the Hogs BS. I've heard it enough. I've seen it enough. I'm good. Just don't give me Arkansas.
Yeah, if we are looking at, just sort of teams outside of the top 4 that could make a run, obviously Houston being a 2. If Iowa State makes shots like they did tonight, I know they lost tonight, but Iowa State's so good defensively that if they make shots like they do tonight, they can go a long way. And then Illinois is an interesting team because you got Wagler.
Right.
They've got tremendous size up and down that roster, and they can shoot all over the place. But as far as KU, I know this is going to sound weird, but it's not even a specific team that I'm looking at and saying, oh, they can't beat that team, because I think they can beat a lot of teams. It's just a question of which KU shows up, right?
100%.
If it's the team that beat Arizona, if it's the team that, absolutely ran BYU off the court in the first half, if it's the team that beat Houston when they played. I know people are going to say, oh, Allen Fieldhouse, they beat Tennessee on a neutral court. They were right there with Duke late, despite not having Darren Peterson on a neutral court. They haven't typically played that badly on neutral courts. They haven't played like at Allen Fieldhouse, but they beat TCU, an NCAA tournament team, literally last night. And if not for Flory's foul trouble, they probably would have won that game by double digits. And so, yeah, tonight was a laid egg on a neutral court game, but they also aren't playing on the road, which is where they've really been bad this year. And so when I look up and down it and say, oh, I wouldn't want to match up with this team or that team, I'm not saying there aren't teams you would like to avoid, but at the same time, I don't think there's a team where I look at it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am terrified of that team. I think it's more just I'm terrified of, is KU going to show up against whoever they're playing? Right.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. It's sort of, we're at the stage right now where, based off of what we've seen from KU over the course of the season, you're right. It's not necessarily strictly matchup based for KU. It really will come down to A, as you mentioned, which KU team shows up, and then B, I think foul trouble would be a factor as well because of what we talked about with Flory and so on and so forth. So, it's probably going to come down to that as well, and just how things go for KU. But it is a bit of a bummer to end the Big 12 tournament on such a dud, right? You would obviously be feeling, I think, quite a bit better if this was tonight, a hard fought game, or maybe you lose to Houston on a, late in the game and it's a 4-point loss or whatever. You would obviously feel, I think, still a lot better about, where KU would be headed. But now you've got some time until Selection Sunday where you'll figure out where you're going to go. And the one final little nugget that I would add about this, and this kind of continues to be true, is that when you give Bill Self enough time to prepare for a team, he typically tends to figure it out. So you're talking about the first game, and then if you make the second weekend, that second game, it's the quick turnaround. We'll see. But
that second round game, and I'm not saying they'll win the first game, but even against Arkansas last year, which was their first round loss, since Self's first few years, since the Bradley game. Even in that game, Kansas was leading before KJ Adams went down. So at the end of the game. And so all I'm saying is I think they'll be well prepared, for their first round game. The game that I would be really worried about is that second round game. I think on a 2-day turnaround, you don't have as much time. Bill Self has traditionally, even at the height of his powers, traditionally hasn't been as effective on that quick turnaround. And so I think that's where I would look at it and kind of grimace a little bit. Plus, we've talked about it before, and Bill Self has talked about it. You don't need to be deep in the NCAA tournament. The TV timeouts are longer. There are certain things where you don't have to play as many guys. But at the same time, I still think that when you're playing at that high intensity, when you do have your second game in 3 days, that fatigue could be a little bit of a factor.
The bottom line is KU's next game is going to be an elimination game in the NCAA tournament. The next game that KU plays could be its last if they come up short. So it's now or never for this Kansas squad. And again, feels bad to end it the way it ended here at T-Mobile Center tonight against Houston. But got to find a way to flush it, move forward, and get ready for the NCAA tournament. So as I mentioned, Kevin and I are we're planning on doing a live show here on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN after the bracket is revealed on Sunday afternoon. So we'll be breaking down Kansas's path. There's been a lot of questions about KU's potential path. We'll obviously be able to talk about all that. Rocco Hawk here in the chat asks what place in the KU will be placed next week. hard to say.
Yeah.
Hard to say at this point. If you were, I had pulled up the sites. There's like Greenville, South Carolina. There's Philadelphia. There's those were the two that I circled in my head that I thought maybe KU could end up playing in. You're not going to go to Oklahoma City at this point, I don't think. You wouldn't go to St. Louis. I think those are maybe I don't know, the two most options. Just real quick, just because I thought this was funny.
I do want to answer Joseph's thing about 2023 UConn.
Okay.
They were actually the 6th best team in the country. I have all kinds of research that Nick can attest to this. There's a lot happening on Kevin's computer. My job at CBS in 24/7 for actually several years was basically to look at what makes a national champion. And so I dove into the stats. I looked at trends and all of these different things. That UConn team was 6th in KenPom heading into the NCAA tournament. So they weren't quite analytically the best team in the country heading into the tournament. Teams' rankings when they win in the tournament tend to jump way up because you're beating quality teams.
Right. That does make sense. Just because I thought this was funny from Mr. Smith, Ballard or Marshall, who we like at QB. Well, we'll be talking about that a lot more.
No love for Chase Jenkins.
Yeah, as I say, first of all, Chase Jenkins erasure here from Mr. Smith at the end of the show. If KU was playing a game tomorrow, I think Cole Ballard would be the starter. That's what I'm saying. Melvin Council's dog. So you're saying there's a chance. There's always a chance.
There is always a chance.
Always a chance. And so, we're going to be live on Sunday afternoon after the bracket comes out. We'll talk about it. We'll probably have some hot takes, I'm sure, about other teams in the bracket.
By the way, Nick, KU is number 57 in the country on offense. You would think that would disqualify KU because they wouldn't have a good enough offense to win. But that is not the case because 2013, 2014 UConn also 57th in offense heading into the NCAA tournament. There's always a chance.
Really makes you think.
Really makes you think.
Once again, Sunday afternoon after the suction show, we're going to be live on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks, KCSN. And then, of course, we'll have our coverage of the NCAA tournament. We'll have probably a little bit more in-depth preview show early in the week next week. And then, of course, we'll anticipate having the opportunity to be live for post-game after KU plays in the NCAA tournament. However far they go, you can expect us to be covering them. Shout out to Mrs. Smith for the football question, because also the spring football is going to be starting here in the next couple weeks. There'll be a ton of football coverage coming your way as well. So don't worry.
Tell them to check out our Fitz interview.
Yeah. Oh, I you know what? I totally forgot about that last night. Yes. By the way, people, we are on what's today? Oh, I don't even know what date it's. Friday. Today's Friday.
It is Friday.
On Thursday, we had a chance to sit down and have a conversation with head coach for KU baseball, Dan Fitzgerald. They have started conference play this weekend against Texas Tech. Would highly encourage you guys to go check it out. Dan Fitzgerald, I think, is an excellent coach. He's always has some wise words of wisdom, I think, to impart. And it was a really great conversation. So would encourage people to go check that out as well. And also crank the hog, get out there and support KU baseball as they continue into Big 12 conference play. So yes, thank you for reminding me that, Kevin, because I actually had meant to talk about that last night, and then I forgot in how the game ended last night with KU and TCU. So thank you for reminding me.
Flory was a +31 last night,
and it just
you were a -1.
Right. I guess in my 40 minutes of game time last night, I missed on that. So sincerely apologize. But hey, thanks so much everybody for joining us tonight. It's very late on a Friday night. Appreciate everybody hanging out here. And again, we'll be live on Sunday afternoon after the bracket is revealed to talk about KU and KU's path in the NCAA tournament. So coming out with us then. And until next time, for Kevin Flaherty, I'm Nick Springer, signing off for the final time from the T-Mobile Center here in Kansas City. We'll talk to you again on Sunday. See ya.
Ballard versus Marshall versus Jenkins versus Mason in the Thunderdome.
Chase Jenkins erasure, bro.